internet is extremely democratic. It equalizes everybody. My children growing up in Kenya have the same sort of fantasies as the kids growing up in Miami or in Berlin.
We truly believe that access to the internet equalizes opportunities for people across the world.
My own son, my own daughter, there are times get to ask me, Daddy, what do you do? Or what's your work all about? And then I get to tell them, guess what? Take your phone and open up anything that you think is of interest to you. Whatever you've just done, that entire content, it's running from a data center environment. Such a coincidence that really the very location you are in is very critical when people look at the history of telecommunications or technology across the East African market. So we were the very first organization that broke the telecommunications monopoly. Then we broke it by way of bringing what customers were also wanting, which is really the benefits of competition.
So when we were thinking about building data centers, the obvious choice in Kenya is always Nairobi. However, what we were missing is critical infrastructure where the internet begins, which is Mombasa. And 2014, we decided to go and build our first data center in Miritini because without robust infrastructure for the subsea systems to come in, we would never have a competitive advantage or a robust, cost-efficient system.
What we picked was an opportunity to build something that was going to meet the expectations of different customers. We host over 50% of Kenyan banking institutions in this very data center because they have their IT hardware that can either be offering communication or processing or storage of their telecommunication services.
We have a unique business model which we call the carrier-neutral data center, which means we only provide space, power, cooling, and security. We don't provide networks.
Safaricom has been in the country for about 24 years. The vision for the business was transforming lives. Coming to digital transformation, Safaricom is a firm believer in leveraging technology to provide opportunities that transform lives. That's why we are committed to continuing to roll out our network, because everything starts with a network. You have to have the network. So we have rolled out the network across the country. We are covering about 98% of the population at the moment. All our network is currently 4G, so wherever you are, you will access 4G. So we basically say the country is completely covered.
The phases of development for data centers, I would say, is in general being driven by customers. So the first step is edge, which of course means you're only processing content. The next step is compute, which we are not yet in Kenya, which is where customer data is not only being stored, but it's also being processed and then sent out from the same location. From compute to the AI laden is what will happen in Kenya in the next 7 to 10 years or so.
In as much as we are building infrastructure, we do not need to limit ourselves to just building infrastructure on the telecommunication side. There's a much bigger opportunity on the data center side as well. The network was making us connect to the internet. After you've had that connectivity, there could be technological services that will then require local presence.
We opened the data center in 2017. What that did is it took the average cost of IP transit in Kenya at that time from about $70 to about $1.5. And we are expecting it to go to about 20 cents.
Kenya has the capabilities of having reliable and redundant carrier and cloud neutral data centers like we have today.
So we work through partners to make sure that our customers have access to devices. We sell devices in our shops and in our stores and through our partners. It's because the device is the window to the world.
If you look at the way we're living today and the way we've lived in the past, and certainly the way we're going to live in the future, One of the common themes is we're spending more and more time with machines that manage and improve the quality of our lives. You don't need to go to an office anymore. You can work remotely. Apparently, in 5 years, we will have cars where we don't need drivers because they're sort of automated completely. The common theme here is that everything is communicating to everything else, right? Which, of course, means you need networks. That happens at data centers. So if you don't have scalable data centers within the vicinity of that local marketplace, you have to deal with the speed of light issue. So in the end, you can't defeat physics. Speed of light is the constraining factor for everything that we do, which is why everything has to be locally. So that's what's happened in Kenya in the last 10 to 12 years.
We normally make visits across the country to visit our customers. So Kakuma, those are our customers. It's a marginalized place. It's harsh, high temperatures. People are living in makeshift homes. But that's the best they can get because it is safe. So one of the projects we're running there is an education project in one of the schools called Angelina Jolie School, which is basically a package solution that offers a tablet, digitized learning content. These students are able to access the same level of education as any other student anywhere in the world, So just giving them hope. It doesn't matter what your current situation is, but here you'll be able to get access to the best quality of education. We've been working with the youth for a long time, but now we're saying we need to be a little bit more targeted about how we help them to leverage technology as a platform, as an opportunity for them. The youth are the most in this country, employment levels are what they are, but we're saying people should not be looking at white-collar jobs. They should be saying, how can I actually be able to leverage technology? Which comes to the next step, which is around providing digital skills. We're focusing on 3 pillars: technology, career, and culture. So under technology, we are saying, what are the digital skills that we can provide the youth so that they can take advantage of the gig economy, jobs that are on the internet?
There's been, again, very good local skills and talent. And these local skills and talent, it's there to serve the global one. I like it when I see Microsoft having Africa Development Center, in Nairobi. Google talking about tech, their tech hub for Africa, again, situated in Nairobi. I like the announcement by Oracle the other day that, they are bringing an availability zone or a local zone in Kenya. And this is just to make sure that, they are tapping on the uniqueness of Kenya. Again, look at Kenya's physical position. When you look at the African continent, it's much easier for technology service providers to serve the continent from Kenya due to its unique position geophysically. It's sitting somewhere central, and its central position means it can then serve, Northern Africa, it can serve Southern Africa, and it can also serve Western Africa. And you see, East Africa is already covered by way of Kenya being where we are.
Kenya is one of the rare places in the entire 154 countries where you're pretty close to fully sustainable power. By luck or misfortune or whatever it is, if you grown up in the 80s in Kenya, we didn't have a lot of power. And the government, instead of investing in coal data plants, started investing in hydro, in solar, and as a result, today, about 75% of all generation in Kenya is renewable. So completely 100% sustainable.
We have to make sure that we're doing business right. So our data centers are heavy energy consumers. And being a very high energy consuming environment, you'll see that we actually have more than 20% of our energy, again, tapped from our own investments by way of solar energy capacity that we have on site. And that is just to tap on Africa's free solar energy opportunities. So we are doing that again to just make sure that we are as green as possible and also reducing our costs in terms of, if we were to only depend on the utility and the cost of fuel by way of the generators, that will be very high. And we want to make sure that our product is being sold at a price that our customers can afford.
I think in Kenya is an exception in Africa. If you look at South Africa, 75% of it is still fossil-based emissions. The role for Africa, I think, in the long term is one where we have the opportunity to build sustainable power because our systems are still quite young. And I feel it's easier to grow with a sustainable solution than what you are trying to do in Europe and other parts, especially the US. We are trying to replace existing systems with new investments in sustainable energy. So I think that cycle will take them much further.
The roots are made strong because, they spread, and there are many people who are contributing to, to that tree that is standing.
A tree structure, as the roots go down into the ground, they are connected through a network to other trees, which help them communicate together. It's about using that network in order for them to help each other, to collaborate, in order to basically ensure that everyone in the ecosystem has the right amount of nutrients.
So the way I look at it, at times when I have conversations with some of the industry players, peers, and colleagues whom we've walked this journey with, when I look at what it has taken to be where we are, where, it's almost like network services are ubiquitous. You'll get it everywhere, right? I mean, look at the consumption of technology on social media. Today, everyone is talking about AI and ChatGPT. So that just tells you that really there's been a lot of consumption of content using digital infrastructure. And when we see this consumption of content on the digital platform or the landscape, then that just means a lot more demand for what we are doing.
I think by 2030 or 2050, more than half of the youth will actually be in Africa, because most of the other continents are starting to age quite a bit. So this is a very, very young continent. We are looking at an average of about 19, 20 years old. It's a continent where each of the countries have telco operators that are committed to improving the infrastructure. We have a lot of cables that have landed here that are opening Africa to the world. So the foundations are being laid down. So the youth have understood that that is actually the future, that actually it's a lifelong learning. So as a result, they're able to be agile to picking up new skills. 900 million Africans, as we speak, don't have access to devices that allow them to access the internet. So if you're someone who is selling devices and willing to provide services, digital services, then this is the place to be, because we're saying there's an untapped opportunity that you can take advantage of.
African data is still quite unique because every country has their own sovereign data requirements. And as a result of that, everybody wants it to be local. And it's a fair discussion because, a small country like Belgium that has 5 million people can sit under the umbrella of the EU, but we don't have that in Africa. So, people living in Tunisia or in Burundi still have the right to make sure that their data sits in country. And I think that's an evolving discussion. What I think is very clear is requirements for access to data, storage of data, the privacy of data is a universal right. And, we feel that in the end, a lot of governments are actively looking at the impact of what that means. I would say more than 50% already have legislation protecting. I do feel, we are not quite there yet, but, in the future to come, a lot of it would be very local and a lot of it would remain within the region.
We always believe in, being enablers for trade. And when we are talking about being an enabler for trade, we want to make sure that we've got a one Africa. We want to make sure that there is ease of doing business. That's what technology is all about. We do not want to look at technology by way of the jargon, but we want to look at technology as being used to make sure that we are having virtual borders and not physical borders. So if we can have a way that businesses can actually operate across the entire continent using technology, that is where we want to play.
So there's a study that was done that says that any place where you have access to the internet, specifically 3G and 4G, reduces the poverty gap because you have access to information, access to markets, access to knowledge, access to customers, just creates more opportunities and just reduces that gap. So digital infrastructure has a way of